There's a lot of pessimism about Canada right now. Sure, we've got an affordability crisis, a housing crisis, an opioid crisis, a mental health crisis. We're getting taxed into oblivion. No one's having kids, and we still can't get cheaper fucking phone plans. I know it's ridiculous. I made this video though to talk about the positives. And I think there's no better way to talk about the positives than to compare yourself with your neighbors, right? So in this Canadian Thanksgiving episode, we'll be listing 5 reasons to be thankful in Canada compared to the United States. Number 1, healthcare. Canada has publicly funded universal healthcare. This means Canadian citizens and permanent residents receive coverage for medically necessary hospital and physician services, basically for free. Well, it isn't really free because you all pay your taxes, I assume. In the US, on the other hand, people are expected to pay a lot more out of pocket. Does that guarantee access to the care they need? Well, check this shit out. The US is dead last for access. And look at us, Canada. Still shit, but focus, guys. Just look at the US. And what about health outcomes? Look at us up here, and the US is all the way down there. Americans live the shortest lives and have the most avoidable deaths compared to other higher income countries. I know, it feels like you can't find a family doctor anywhere in Canada, but just focus on the data for a minute. Just look at the functional healthcare funded by our tax dollars. And aren't you just thankful? Speaking of taxes, most people assume we pay more taxes here in Canada compared to the US. The reality is that lower income Canadians generally pay less in federal taxes than lower income Americans for the services that we receive. Obviously, there's state and provincial taxes to compare here, but let's not get into that. At number 2, I'm thankful for our food industry here. Obviously, you are what you eat, right? There is prevalence of fast and ultra-processed food in both American and Canadian culture, but there are a few differences. Our portions in Canada tend to be smaller. I swear, if you go to an IHOP in the US, the portion is huge for basically the same price. The reality is that a third of Americans are obese. Comparatively, only a quarter of Canadians are obese. I should also state that there is a fuck ton of things that are banned in Canadian food that are still allowed in American food till this day. Potassium bromate, for example, is used to strengthen bread and help the bread rise. The problem is it may cause cancer, especially if the bread is not baked properly. It is banned here in Canada, but the US still uses it. The other example I wanted to tell you guys about is the recombinant bovine growth hormone, RBGH for short. It is used in the United States to increase milk production in dairy cows. Also not good for you. To be fair, the EU has even stricter laws on food quality than we do here in Canada. A friend of mine was visiting Serbia for a few weeks. She was still eating junk, as you do when you travel. However, she swears everything tasted better. She actually lost weight. So, and if you know a Serbian person or you've eaten some of their shivape, you'll know how incredible it is to lose weight on that diet. They just don't have the same shit we have in our food over here. But hey, here in Canada, we're better than the US. I'll take that win. It is so bad that in the US, one of their presidential candidates, Robert Kennedy Jr., made it a campaign slogan. Essentially, I'm talking about Make America Healthy Again. And speaking of politicians, that's number 3. I'm thankful for Canadian politicians. Just let me explain, okay? People at the moment seem to despise Justin Trudeau on a deeply spiritual level right now. I'm not gonna lie. And Pierre Poilievre, the Prime Minister in waiting, if you believe the polls, continues to stoke that fire. He must really not like Justin Trudeau on a personal level. I mean, it is one thing to say the country is broken because of Justin Trudeau. It is another thing to blame him for anti-Semitism. Anyways, I know you guys don't want to hear this, but we at least have politicians talking about issues that matter to Canadians. In the meantime, with the Liberals desperate to avoid a fall election, they're actually focused on delivering things like national pharmacare and dental care for Canadians. Fundamentally, there are problems still with the cost of living and with housing. Those are top of mind, obviously, right now, but they are actually listening. That's the quality of the debate here in Canada. We don't all agree about what is important, but we're mostly focused on the issues. And to be fair, it helps that our media is less biased in their reporting compared to the United States. The CNN and Fox News, shame on you guys. That's all I'm saying. Here's the thing, though. Whatever you may think of Pierre Poilievre, and he does go to extremes sometimes, is no Donald Trump. I really felt sorry for the Haitian community in Springfield, Illinois, who had to deal with accusations that they had been eating their neighbors' pets.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there.
On the other hand, Kamala Harris's plans are possibly not worth the pieces of paper they're printed on. She has flip-flopped on several talking points throughout this election cycle. But if you find yourself this Thanksgiving, if you find that you're sad about our politics, think about the fact that in the US, they have to choose between Donald Terrible and Kamala Horrid. Let's talk about number 4. At number 4, I'm thankful that we don't have as many fucking mass shootings here. It is cool and all that Americans have the Second Amendment, which is essentially the right to keep and bear arms. In Canada, obviously, we lost that right in 1993. What that just means is you can't just go out and buy an AR-15 easily here in Canada. Well, that's exactly what a certain Thomas Matthew Crooks did and almost shot down Donald Trump. And somehow they managed to land on the conclusion in that country that they needed more guns. So much so that Kamala Harris, in order to win votes, is actually making a show of the fact that she owns a gun.
You have guns. No, at the debate.
I'm a gun owner. Tim Walz is a gun.
I did not know that.
If somebody breaks in my house, they're getting shot.
Yes. I hear that. I hear that.
Probably should not have said that.
You would think the 385 mass shootings in 2024 just from January to September would be enough to warrant some more stringent gun control. Anyways, comparatively, we've had 2 mass shootings this year here in Canada. That's too many, but I'll take that over 385 for sure. But could you imagine if someone gave us more guns in addition to the mental health crisis we currently have in this country? But just so you know, though, you can still own non-restricted firearms like sporting rifles and shotguns with a license here in Canada. For context, the only guns that are illegal in the US are machine guns. Who thought that was a good idea? I don't even understand that. But let's move on to number 5. Racism and hate crime. So on an episode of this podcast a while ago, I asked the guest if Canada is less racist than the United States. And you can check out that episode. I'll actually link it up there. So what do you guys think? Is Canada less racist than the United States? Obviously, I'm a black man, right? So this matters to me. But racism goes beyond crimes against black people. Indigenous people deal with this as well. You also get violence against certain groups of people because of their religion or because of their sexual orientation. And right now, with the war in the Middle East, Jewish people have been targeted a lot more in Canada and in the United States. It is hard to say here, but I'm thankful we don't hear of things like the George Floyd incident here in Canada. At least not with the same frequency. And don't get me wrong, the police mishandle situations here and people die more than you think. For example, a mother was shot dead about a month ago in Surrey here in BC. But I'll end with this. In a world that is very inflamed right now, Canada is relatively peaceful. We're not arguing about whether women should have freedom to have abortions or not. Abortions have been legal throughout the country here since 1988. We're a bit weird in other things in that every time a country is at war, we create an immigration stream to resettle their residents in Canada, sometimes without an understanding of where they're going to live or what jobs they'll do once they arrive. And speaking of jobs, our wages are an absolute abomination compared to the US, but let's stick with the positives. I said this was supposed to be a Thanksgiving episode. So forget I said that. It's not like we care or anything, but it's not like here in Canada we talk about your country and your politics more than we talk about our own sometimes. Anyways, you guys tell me, what are you thankful for here in Canada? Get in the comments. That's all I had to say today. If you're new around here, please subscribe, like, and share the content with your friends. I'm grateful for you guys for always tuning in. See you next time.